technology now surrounds us on the flight deck, and while some would say it takes away from a pilot's capabilities, others say it makes a good pilot even better. The flight operations team at Embraer certainly thinks so, and they introduced me to a key component of the new Praetor 500 midsize business jet during a recent demo flight to make their point. The technology lies in the company's proprietary fly-by-wire flight control system, and VP of Flight Ops Brad McKegg walked me through its operation in a thorough briefing before we headed out for the flight.
And as a pilot, we're great compensators. We figure things out quickly without even knowing we're figuring it out. And then we'll explain it, you'll go, and the technology makes you a better pilot.
The fly-by-wire system has its roots in Embraer's military aircraft, as Alvadi Serpa pointed out. He's the director of product strategy of Embraer executive jets. The military determined that they wanted pilots to be able to focus on a combat engagement rather than the physical control of the airplane. Alvadi pointed out that Embraer is heading into its 5th generation of fly-by-wire with the system on the Praetor.
And there's a big gust and it kicks you over to 10 degrees and then back to 15 degrees. And what are you doing? You're doing this the whole time. This one, but in your mind, if you can visualize this, when you put in a bank and when you put in a pitch, take your hand off and it'll do it. You just point and shoot, if you can think of it like that.
In an airplane with cable-actuated flight controls, when you're on the stick, you put in an input and reverse the control in order to keep it in place. With fly-by-wire, you roll in and take your hand off of it. The flight control unit tells the control surface what position to take. It does it all behind the scenes. The pilot doesn't need to go beyond the initial input until they're ready to change course. It's not unlike a command from the helm of a large ship down to the engine room. Since you've been trained the traditional way, it takes you a little bit of time to figure it out, until you don't have to do that consciously anymore. So even hand flying is less fatiguing.
They gave us the keys, and we like suckers.
Starting our walk around of the Praetor, Jim goes through each stop on the way, showing me how Embraer has focused on making the job a relatively easy one. Most of the hard systems to access can be pre-flighted up front in the Proline Fusion flight deck. The winglet is as tall as I am, with the wingtip at head height. Adding it, according to the company, gave the design another 88 nautical miles of range over a straight wingtip. We take a look at the landing gear and see where the pressures are placarded. Other access points have been simplified for fewer operational errors. Looking at the horizontal stab and anti-servo tab, the whole stab swings and the anti-servo tab works against it. It's all actuated by the fly-by-wire computers. Once the walk-around is complete, we get on board the Praetor and settle into the flight deck. As Jim points out how things are organized up front, I'm impressed by how well the controls for various systems are positioned, thoughtfully, especially the ergonomics of the rollerball and touchpads on each side of the center console. You use the trackball to move around each of the 4 displays and highlight the data fields as you need them. We load the flight plan for a round-robin flight and taxi out. My takeoff brief prepared me for the V-speeds and the initial deck angle I'd target, both on that first takeoff and during a go-around later. We climbed up to flight level 150, clicked off the autopilot, and started through a series of maneuvers that would take me progressively through the fly-by-wire's responses to my various control inputs, and demonstrate the envelope protection systems integrated between the Proline Fusion and the 500. Underspeed and overspeed profiles match those found on other advanced flight decks, but where the intelligence of the fly-by-wire really shines is in how the algorithms handle flight from a 45-degree bank to the left, immediately followed by a steep bank to the right. Stop to stop is smooth and slick. It sure doesn't feel like you're horsing around a 70-foot wingspan. I could even take my hand off the stick and keep the turn going. The Fusion helps the pilots organize all of the components of descent and approach, starting with entering the profile from the flight levels through every aspect of systems management to briefing the approach and running checklists. We make the RNAV 27 left back into Melbourne, and I'm briefed for the go-around. That deck angle is 25 degrees and it gets your attention, but it puts the Praetor back into the sky quickly and with a safety margin. The landing's my first one in the type, and I land long because I wasn't as quick on the spoilers as I could have been. And it's my first time landing the nose gear on an airplane where the nose wheel sits so many feet in front of the mains. It's a feeling akin to allowing the tail wheel to land itself in a conventional gear airplane, and it's one I'm looking forward to trying again. The whole experience was a lot to take in during one day, but with the Praetor's well-organized flight deck, smart systems, and that fly-by-wire intelligence shadowing my every move, I felt confident that this was a great next step up into the mid-sized jet world for pilots coming up from the Citation Mustang or CJ series, the Honda Jet, or Embraer's own Phenom 100 EV or 300E.